what's coming up the next day. Typically, at least I get
Right.
mentally prepared, even if I don't take any action. I wake up and I know what's going to happen. So next day comes, I start my day, bam, fire. Like not a literal
Yep.
fire, a word fire. Now all of a sudden you're starting to play defense again. How do you pause during the day when your days already get derailed? Take a deep breath and say, okay, I got to get this back on track.
So I
gotta
want you to
start
think
playing
about
offense again.
when people say this all the time, I have to fight fires all day long. And then I ask them, okay, well, if you're a firefighter, ask yourself how you would fight a fire that seems to be like out of control. Firefighters will be relentless about things, but they'll also be very strategic about it. They will let parts of a building burn down so that they can save other parts of the building. Or they'll be like, you know what, I need to let this part of the building go because we have to protect this other building over here. Like they get very strategic about it. So when people often say, I'm fighting fires all day long, they're normally doing this, like there's no control, there's no element to it, right? So the thing is that you can, Questlove wrote about this in his book called Creative Quest. This is the first time I came across this term about micro meditations. And it's like taking 30 seconds and just sitting with it. 30 seconds is not a lot of time when you're feeling that fight or flight thing. But when you are consciously taking 30 seconds, it can feel like forever. I do this exercise with people when I've done, speaking on stage and even virtually. Harder to do virtually because the atmosphere is different. But I've done like, okay, we're going to sit here for 60 seconds and do nothing. Put your books down, put everything. Don't want to see any devices. And we're going to do this for 60 seconds, starting now. And I sit for 60. I don't do anything for 60, and then I sit down. And then at about the 35-second mark, I kind of shuffle as if I'm going to get up, and people are like, oh, because they feel like, oh, but they don't realize we're just barely past the halfway mark. And then you hear like, you know, when there's too much silence and it gets uncomfortable, and then you could hear people starting to laugh and titter, and you hear the shuffling of feet and all that stuff. That's when people are when you feel uncomfortable. That's okay. That means that something is like, you're sitting with something that you're not used to, right? And I love the idea of micro meditations and just taking a beat and going, okay, how do I attack this properly? Like what's the next best action for me to take? Is it to start spraying willy-nilly, or is it for me to go, hey, you know what? Joe's over there. I need to know what he can maybe do to help me out. I'm going to sit down and map out what I need to do to take care of this really quickly, or I'm going to get on the phone and call this person. I'm going to just take a beat before I actually do anything, right? Like fools rush in, that idea of fools rushing in, right? And it's amazing when you take that 30-second beat or 60-second beat or however long, because the clarity that you gain from that just in that moment can allow you to forge ahead with a better solution than just the straight up offense. Another metaphor would be football, right? Like the idea of, I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan, unfortunately, no matter how you want to slice it. But when you're playing football, the defense is designed to stop an offensive play, and the offense is trying to get through, whether they're trying to run the ball. The quarterback reads the defense, may call an audible, right? Oh, they're going to do this differently now. You're literally trying to get 10 yards down to get the next 4 chances to score, right? And there's constant changing that's happening. And a 2-yard gain, a 3-yard gain is something, right? You're that much closer. So think about it in those terms as well. You're not always going to be able to get 15, 20 yards. You sometimes have to grind it out and get 3, then 2, then 5. And okay, now we got a first down. So it's often when we are faced with these reactionary solutions, or these reactionary situations rather, we tend to try to think of like, I need to solve this completely now. And most cases you can't. Sometimes you have to let certain things burn. Sometimes you have to let certain things go. But the only way you're going to get that understanding, that awareness, that focus, that clarity is to go, all right, I'm going to take a step and kind of just be thoughtful about it. Be a bit more reasoned with my approach as opposed to being reckless or ruthless. Because reckless productivity is not productive. It's not sustainable. I mean, just doing things at random is not. It'll check off boxes, but it won't necessarily check off the right ones. Ruthless productivity is a recipe for burnout. You know, I'm gonna dive in and then all of a sudden you're wondering like, why am I? I now can't do anything. I've been doing this for 2 weeks strong, and now I'm out. But a reasoned approach, that's sustainable. So I think honestly, in situations like that, taking 30 seconds to step back and assess, and sometimes that's looking at the problem, sometimes that's stepping away from the problem. But it's important. And the 30 seconds you step away, you can come back and make great gains that you wouldn't have been able to make otherwise.